What's going on, guys? Dropadooski here. Today we're going to do another beginner's guide for Path of Exile, and this one's going to go into the basics of mapping. Now, mapping is one of the key things that you do at the end game of Path of Exile, and you're going to be running them all the time once you finish Act 10 Catawba. Now, we're going to start right out with, I've just found a map, what do I do with it? Now, you're going to start seeing maps around eye level 58 or towards the middle of Act 8, and they're going to be dropping from mobs randomly as you go through, finishing up all the way through Act 10 and killing Catawba. Now, at that point, when you get those maps, you're going to want to just throw them in your bag and wait. But once you get done with Act 10 and you go to the Templar's room and you find the map machine, your ability to use those maps effectively and efficiently is going to determine how much currency you can farm, how many good items you'll get, whether or not you're going to be able to gear your character effectively. So we're going to touch on some key things to remember as you start out in mapping and also utilize as you continue through mapping. We will do a more advanced guide on mapping later on, but for now we're just going to go over the basics. The first thing we're going to talk about with mapping is tiers. Now, the tier on a given map indicates its difficulty. The more difficult the map, the more experience it can give you. So early on, around the middle of Act 8, when you start getting map drops, you're going to be getting Tier 1 only. Tier 1 is the only thing that can drop up until Catawba or into mapping, and once you finish that, get to the epilogue, you're going to go to the map machine and take any maps that you've gotten thus far, pop one in, and it'll be a Tier 1. Now, the way to progress up in tiers and get, those higher difficulty but more XP maps is by killing mobs in the map. So the rule here is that white mobs or normal mobs can only drop maps of the same tier or lower. So in that one, all white mobs have a chance to drop you another Tier 1 map. Blue or magic mobs can drop maps up to one tier higher. So if you're running in a Tier 1 map and you kill a blue pack, it can potentially drop you a Tier 2 map. The last thing to touch on are rare and unique mobs. Now, rare, aka yellow mobs, and uniques, or the boss, both can drop up to 2 tiers higher than the current map tier that you're in. So if you kill a rare or the boss and you're in a Tier 1, it can drop you up to a Tier 3 potentially. Now, there are other ways to get higher tier maps, and we're going to go over those more later in the video. One is through Zana, and we're going to go in depth into Zana, and then through a vendor recipe or through trading in game. Next, we're going to talk about the Atlas and Atlas completion. Now, the Atlas itself is a large map. If you hit G in game, it'll pull it up, and it shows all the different map nodes and whether or not they've been completed. Atlas completion is the number of maps that you've gotten credit for and completed on the Atlas versus the number of total maps that are available on that Atlas. Now, Atlas completion is important for 2 reasons. The first reason is the more maps that you have completed on the Atlas, the better your chances are of getting higher tier map drops. The second reason is once a map has been completed on the Atlas, it can drop from any map. Before it's been completed, it can only drop from maps that are directly connected to it via the Atlas and the nodes and how they're linked together. Now, Atlas completion also follows a set of rules in regards to the tier of difficulty that the map is. On maps 1 through 5, it has to be of magic quality or blue. So in order to make a white map blue, you're going to take an orb of transmutation, use it on that white map, and it will become blue. Then you run it, kill the boss, and you'll get Atlas completion for it. On maps 6 through 10, they have to be rare or yellow. You're going to use an Orb of Alchemy on a white map at those tiers in order to turn it yellow, and then you will get completion for it upon killing the boss at the end of that map. Everything above that, so 11 to 16, needs to be corrupted. So in order to make a map corrupted, you first take the white map and use the Alchemy Orb to make it yellow. Then you use a Vol Orb on that map to corrupt it and make it red. Once it's red at those tier levels and kill the boss at the end, you will get Atlas completion for it, and it will increase the number of maps that you have completed on the Atlas. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind with corrupted maps. They are much more difficult. So in certain instances, you may corrupt a map and then realize that your character isn't strong enough to do it. What you can do at that, a nice strategy for that is, if you complete that map at a regular tier or a normal tier, it can then now drop when it's connected on the Atlas, so you can farm a bunch of them up, and then later when your character is more powerful, you can come back and kill that corrupted variant and get the map completion. Another thing to keep in mind is when you corrupt a map, it can potentially change the map altogether. So it's no longer, say for instance, you corrupt the spider forest, it's no longer a spider forest. So then you go in and run it and kill the boss and you're like, why didn't I get completion? It wasn't that original map. So keep those in mind when corrupting maps. The next thing we're going to talk about is Xana. Now you can purchase maps from Xana in-game that you can then use for Atlas completion. Xana sells maps based on the level that she is. So the higher that you level Xana, the higher available maps that she has for sale. Now there are a couple strategies when purchasing maps from Xana that you want to keep in mind as a new player to the game. Xana will keep a consistent map pool, aka the maps she has available for purchase, and those will change based on two different things. When she levels up, so if she goes from level 2 to 3, when she becomes level 3, that map pool will change. So if there are maps in the current map pool of what she has available for sale that you have not done yet, make sure that you purchase up those maps before you run some of her quests or missions and level her up, because once you level her up, that map pool will change. Now there's another way to change her map pool, and that is by completing her dailies each day. Now those dailies can be very useful, but also can eliminate maps that you potentially haven't bought yet and don't have completion for on the Atlas. Now the strategy that I like to follow is I'll do her daily at the very end of the day. I want to make sure that the maps she's carrying are available to me all day long, especially early in the league. So I'll either be doing her quests and working with her and buying maps from her throughout the day, and then right before I'm going to log off at the end of the day, I'll go, hey, I need to do my Xana daily, smash that out, and it'll switch. Now there's one little trick here though. If she's going to level and you haven't done her daily, make sure that you level her via quests, then check that map pool and utilize that map pool for the remainder of the day up until the end, and then do her daily. Don't switch her, so don't level her and then do the daily immediately. You then just missed that map pool that she had right after level. So it's a little tricky, but it's something to keep in mind. Another small tip for the beginning of the league is typically she sells maps for chance and alchemy orbs. So early on, make sure you're looking for those and saving them, so when you go to Xana to buy maps, you have enough currency to grab the ones you need and make more progression on that Atlas completion. Up next, we're going to talk about trading maps and selling maps to the vendors. Now, first off, you can sell any 3 of the same map to any vendor in game to get a map 1 tier higher. Now these maps that are 1 tier higher will be connected to that map on the Atlas. So say for instance you're selling 3 beach maps, you're going to get the next tier up that is connected to beach on the Atlas. This is a very useful tool early in the league, as you're not going to have a lot of maps available and also not a lot of currency for trading early on. So use your vendors, and when you start stockpiling the same type of map, sell them to the vendors so you can get the next tier and then potentially get other map drops so you can get a little more Atlas completion early on. The next way is trading with other players. Now this is done by everybody. It's a big function in Path of Exile, not just for mapping but for everything, and there's a couple of useful tools that we're going to go over, and I'll also link in the description below, that you can use to make this easier as you're jumping in as a new player. First off, the website POE Trade, which is POE.trade, is a very useful tool for finding items that you want to buy from other players. You pull it up, type in what you're looking for, and it'll give you results and prices, and you can restrict that to specific types of currency that you have available that you would like to purchase this thing with. So I use it all the time, and it's very, very good. Another site that's useful is just the straight up pathofexile.com/trade. They have something very similar to POE Trade there through the actual Path of Exile site that you can use. One thing I want to say with this is another good tool is called POE Ninja. Now POE Ninja gives you the prices of things in game, or at least the average prices of things in game, and you may want to utilize this site early on. Now, my experience with the community so far has been amazing. Everybody's been very kind, and they're very good about making sure not to overprice things or take advantage of new players. But just in case, you can have POE Ninja up and verify the price of a map that you're looking for, at least the average cost. That way, when you go to POE trade and there's only one available, it's not super overpriced. So you can, either whisper that player or wait for another one to potentially come up that is more on the average price. So utilize these tools. I will put them in the description below, and you are going to be using them all the time as a new player. So just get used to using them now, right when you're starting off mapping. The last thing I want to talk about is investing in maps. Now, when I say investing in maps, I mean using in-game currency in order to modify a map or the atlas so that it increases the quantity of items that drop in that map and the rarity of items that could potentially drop there. The key currencies you want to keep your eyes out for are chisels, alchemy orbs, vol orbs, sextants, scouring orbs, and chaos orbs. All of those can be used to increase this quantity and rarity on a said map, and we'll talk about what each one of them does. Now, a chisel, when you take a white map, a base white map, doesn't matter what tier, and you apply a chisel to it, that will increase the quantity on that map by 5%. Now, you can do that all the way up to 20%. So a base map can go, you can use 4 chisels on and get that up to 20. Now, sometimes a map will drop with a little bit of quantity on it already. I would say, as a tip that I use, if it already has a couple and I use a few chisels and get it to 18, I leave it right there. You don't want to waste that percentage, as chisels get to a point where they're hard to maintain later on when mapping. So make sure that you can fully utilize that 5% when applying them to the maps. Next, we're going to talk about alchemy. Alchemy, as we said before, will change a regular map to a rare or yellow map. When doing this, it greatly increases the quantity and rarity on that map, but it also adds very specific modifiers. Now, these modifiers increase the difficulty of that map. So when you've done this, make sure to keep your eyes on the modifiers that are there, and make sure that you don't have ones that your character potentially can't run or will kill your character instantly when going in. Now, I want to use that as a base to talk about scouring orbs. Now, what scouring orbs do is they'll take that rare map and remove the alchemy that you've added to it, so we'll make it a base white map again. When you find things that are specifically, like for myself, elemental reflect, my character can't run elemental reflect, so instead of having a map that I can't do anything with, I scour it, re-alchemy it, and then if I don't have bad modifiers, it's ready to go. The last thing here in regards to maps is you can add a vol orb to it. Now, the vol orb, as we said before, will make it into a corrupted map or a red map. This also can increase that quantity and rarity, but it can make it very, very dangerous. So be very, very careful when doing this. The other thing I'll say about corrupting maps is they can no longer be scoured. So at that point, if you potentially get a map that is too dangerous to run and it's already been volved or corrupted, there are 2 options. You can save up 3 of them, then use that vendor recipe to trade it for a tier up, or you can sell it via POE trade or in-game to other characters, because not all builds are the same. Some builds can do elemental reflect, and they may buy those from you, so that you always get some value out of the maps that you've invested in. We'll talk about sextants now. Now, sextants don't specifically modify the map itself, but they go onto the atlas. And what you can do with these is apply them to an individual or specific node on the atlas, and it will add modifiers to that node, to everything that falls within the red circle around the map that you've put it on. So things that I look for there are increased amounts of mobs or increased quantity, other things that will increase my chances of getting more loot. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you do not have to put it on the specific map you're running. As long as the map you're planning on running falls within that red area, then it will count for that map. So if you're running a map like for burial chambers, there are 2 maps near it that I can put Sextants on, the map falls in between both of those, so I'll get the modifiers from both. Finally, we'll talk about Chaos Orbs. Now, Chaos Orbs aren't specifically applied to the map itself, but within the map machine. You'll notice when you put a map into the machine that there are different things that you can add to the map along above the actual area you put the map in, and they all cost some chaos. Every one of those has the potential to make the map more valuable to you and give you more and more chances at more loot and better loot. Now, some people hesitate early on in the league on spending on their maps, but one thing that I've noticed even as a new player is I almost always double my investment on a map. So it's very, very useful to do this to your maps when you start mapping. It will pay off in the long run. Make sure to keep your eye out for these materials and use them as you map, because it will be very, very useful to you when trying to farm currency or farm items. Alright guys, that's everything I wanted to cover in our introduction guide to mapping. I will say there'll be another guide coming up real soon. It's going to go into some more advanced topics like Shaper and Elder and shaping your atlas and sustaining maps and a bunch of things that I want to cover in a separate video. This one though will be everything you need to know to hit the ground running. A big shout out to everybody in the community that's helped me thus far in picking up the game and kind of learning as much as possible as quickly as possible. Also, huge thank you to Sharkbait. Sharkbait has been helping me with both guides we've done so far and many of the guides we'll be doing going forward. His Twitch channel is twitch.tv/sharkbaitthegreat. Please come check out my Twitch stream. It's twitch.tv/dropadooski, and we stream from Monday through Saturday starting at noon MST most days. Everybody please like and subscribe, and also let me know what you think of these videos in the comments. The more comments that I get and the more feedback, the better video guides I can make. I tried to put a little more production in this one and put more things that'll, visually help you as you're going through the videos. I will put a cheat sheet in the description below so that you have a Google Doc to follow while you're playing in game, and I really hope that all of you benefit from this guide and we can do many more good ones going forward. Everybody, good luck in the maps. I hope you find some badass gear, and we'll see you out there. Peace.